Hey everybody, welcome to the Modscast. Hope everybody's doing well today. It's number 20. I was off for a little while, looking for the right topic. I mean, lots obviously going on. North Korea, some other stuff. Some of you getting ready to start up the school year, former students and stuff. If you, have something that you want to talk about, whether it's something that comes up in class, maybe a book you're reading or something you want to talk about, post it in the comments or shoot me an email. And let me know moving forward here as we get ready to embark on another year. I wanted to talk today about the Google memo. James Damore, an engineer at Google, for those of you that haven't heard, didn't publish it, but circulated within Google a memo about the paper essentially, and in which he talked about how Google it was an echo chamber, and he was talking about disparities and diversity training and sensitivity and hiring practices and things like that. And he went through and he did a very impartial analysis of evidence to suggest, for example, that fewer women are interested in tech than men. And he was very clear in saying, and I agree with this completely, that doesn't mean there aren't individual women who are very interested, very capable in those fields. It just means that on the whole, if you look at the larger numbers, that when you try to hire, are you hiring, maybe your hiring practices or your commitment to diversity isn't reflected in the desires of the general population. Again, he was quite clear. He wasn't talking about individuals. He showed graphs and charts and numbers. But I don't want to get into the issue of the gender thing so much as I want to get into the issue of how people have responded to this. Very rational, very inoffensive. I mean, he was clear. He was saying, I'm not against these things. I just think we need to have the right conversation. Very reasonable position to take. But the response has been absolutely vitriolic from some of these media outlets. Most of the people who cite the thing don't properly cite it. They either don't cite the essay at all, or they cite it without its links to the scientific evidence and research, people like Jonathan Haidt, Charles Murray, and things like that, and instead say that it's this screed or someone, that it's a tirade or it's an anti-diversity rant, which it wasn't any of those things. What he's saying is we got a problem in that it's an echo chamber. Yeah, number of people have done great analyses of these: Crowder, Shapiro, Clavin, and of course the idea that there are fundamental biological differences between men and women was his point. But he was very clear that there are exceptions to this in all cases, right? But we're not talking about individuals, we're talking about large trends. When you're saying we need X number of representation in this field, you're dealing with large trends, you're not dealing with individuals. So if you're trying to force a representation when there aren't necessarily that many people who are interested or good at those things, not to say that there aren't individuals who are, of course there are, then you're not having the right conversation, was his point. And we have to be able to have the right conversation if we're going to find a way to reach solutions that satisfy everyone. Now, again, I don't want to get into the particular issues that you raised. I want to get into the response to it, because I think the response to it says something interesting. And that is, he objectively speaks the truth about these things, and then when people respond, they set up a straw man, right? So they go, oh, he's anti-diversity. No, he's not at all. That's a simple way of dismissing what he's raising. Now, you wonder, why do people do that? I mean, it's a very normal response to something that disrupts our view of things. But what I want to get at is, I think what it reflects is a selfishness. In other words, if someone says, presents evidence to suggest that that more men are interested in technical fields than women, the response is, well, that's anti. You're saying that women can't be. No, not at all. Not at all. To say that there are women who are great at it and interested in it, that's obvious. right? But to say that those numbers are equal, that there aren't fundamental biological differences, is a totally different thing, right? I mean, it's two different arguments. But the problem is that people go, well, but I like science, but I'm interested in science, and I want to make it in this field. Okay, good. No one said that you weren't, or that you weren't capable. What we said was that on the whole, right, looking at society as a whole, women aren't as interested in these things. Okay. Now, again, it's a different argument. So why respond to it as this one that says that all women aren't? Well, again, because it's selfish, because we make it about us all the time. It's human nature, right? So, well, but it isn't about you, Dr. Strange, right? It's not about you. That's the key secret. It's not about you. Of course, there are individuals who are interested, but we can't. And I say this to my students all the time. Making generalizations enables us to discuss things and see larger trends. Okay, and it's this question of difference, right? What does difference mean? Right? To say that there's fundamental differences between men and women, biological difference, on the whole, right? Admitting that there are men who are more in touch with their feelings and capable of sharing them, that there are women who are excellent at science and math and those things. There's no question. No one's denying that, okay? That women aren't capable of doing it, you're not saying that, because clearly there are women who are capable of doing it. And as there are men who are capable of being in touch with their feelings, okay? But to argue that you have an idea of what those numbers should look like, rather than that those numbers are determined by biological forces, those are two different things. And if you need, in other words, if you need the representation to be what you think it should be, so for example, if I'm a teacher, okay, and vast majority of teachers are women, okay, at the secondary level where I am, certainly, not necessarily in academia, in higher levels of academia, although that's changing too. Even at the university level, when I was in grad school, most of my fellow grad students were women. I had no problem with that. Didn't feel like they couldn't do it. Didn't think there was a problem. Now, if I thought that the representation should be what I think it should be, rather than what people are interested in and adept at, and try to impose that on other people, that would be me going, well, I need more men here because it makes me feel more validated. Now, if I need to have other people, a certain percentage of other people doing what I do to make me feel good about what I do, that's my problem. I should do something else because it should be valid. Its validation should be in itself, right? I mean, that should just be the way it is. But that's not how people work, because we're afraid deep down inside, right? Afraid, and this Clavin talks about this most recent video. We're all broken, right? And so we're all, wanting validation. That's human nature, okay? And so, in other words, if if I felt that, well, if you said that most women are teachers and women are more naturally desirous to enter the teaching field than men, okay? And I said, well, no, so you're saying that that I shouldn't be a teacher, or that I don't belong in teaching. No, that's nonsense. You're not saying that at all. You're saying what's verifiable, certainly from my experience, right? Now, whether we change teaching to make it more desirable, I don't know, and we could have that conversation, but it's not an attack on me, yeah? And that is where we're getting at with the problem with this thing. And the response to this thing was so vehement that what it suggests is that people need their opinions, their views, to be affirmed by the world. Now, the problem here is what he does is he presents numbers, okay? And he presents the truth about those numbers, that there just aren't as many women interested in these fields as there are in men, or whatever. You can look at the study and his links, because, again, he was very thorough and very inoffensive. He was just trying to have the conversation. Now, that's a truth that may be an unpleasant truth to some people, but most of the time the truth's unpleasant. Look, I'm a 12-stepper. And one of the things, you think about the adults in your life and your friends who really matter. They're not the ones who blow sunshine up your butt all the time. They're the ones who'll tell you the truth that you don't want to hear. And they'll risk you not liking them, okay? Ask anybody who's had to deal with someone who's an addict, someone they care about who's an addict, and tell them the truth about their addictions, okay? In the 12th step, when you go and make amends, you listen to people tell you the truth about what you did to them. It's not an easy thing to do. It's not an easy thing to hear. Your response is you want to be angry, okay? Because you feel like it's an attack on you personally. Well, these are things you did in your sickness, okay? And that's the reality of it. Nobody wants to hear the truth. The truth will always be resisted because it's often unpleasant, okay? And this is what's happening. So what do? You shout the truth down. Right? So the addict, when they're told, when you're told, hey, you're drinking too much, okay? Your response is, screw you, I'm not hurting anybody else. It's my choice, okay? That's normal. But it's important to understand that you have to keep telling that person, no matter how much, until the truth sinks in. Your job is to speak the truth, to power, to your friends, to whoever. Now, the way around this, since the Frankfurt School and the post-structuralist Derrida, Foucault, and those guys, is that there is no truth, so no one can tell you that's the truth. But, of course, to suggest that there is no truth is itself a truth that they had to arrive at using the Western system of academia and intellectual discourse, which they've abstracted out to no end, right? In order to basically free people up to do whatever they want. And assume some sort of intellectual superiority. But the crucial thing here is that we tend to think that differences are necessarily valuative. In other words, that if you say men and women are fundamentally different, you're saying that men are fundamentally superior to women, which isn't true. It isn't true at all. It's only true if you're valuing things if you're putting too much value on the system. So in other words, Michael Jordan is a great basketball player. He's a way better basketball player than I could ever hope to be in a million years. Was, still alive, but LeBron, okay? Ridiculous. Guy's an amazing athlete. Steph Curry, any of those guys. Now, that doesn't mean they're superior human beings to me. They're different. We're different. It's not a valuative difference. One of the things Milton gets a lot of heat, and a lot of people have written about his misogyny, and John Milton, the poet. In Paradise Lost, in the Garden of Eden, as he writes and creates this situation with Adam and Eve, and a lot have been made of the fact that Adam's presented as superior to Eve, and he shouldn't be. And there are some problematic passages, which, again, in a different video, or people are interested, we can talk about. But what he's suggesting, that's the world before the fall, the world before difference, the fall into difference. And in that situation, Adam and Eve are different, but it's only afterwards that we start to see them in a sort of hegemonic or hierarchical difference, right? Where one's more valuable than the other. Eve starts to perceive she wants to be more equal than Adam, right? And through the deception of Satan and the eating of the forbidden fruit. Now, I'm not getting into the religion of it. I'm just looking at the theme of it, right? This idea that difference is always necessary or valuative. We say we value diversity, okay? But it's weird. We're not valuing difference of opinion in the case of this guy, yeah? And what did Google do but fire him? But prove the very point he was making, that you're intolerant for different positions that threaten your idea, your understanding of what you desire to be the truth. So then they fire him. Proving what he's saying, that we're not having the conversation that needs to be had, yeah? It's human nature to put ourselves at the center of everything. We have to be fighting it all the time to imagine that everything relates to us. So when you read an article like that, and worse still, the way the article gets represented. So people don't read the actual piece that he wrote. They read someone's response to it. Very different. Yeah, with the citations edited out and things. Okay. That's a problem. Because, and then what? You respond to it. And you respond to it as we all do when we're on our phones and doing our thing in our own little worlds. How does it relate to me? And you go, how dare he say that? I am a woman who likes science, right? Or, and you say, well, it's not selfish because I'm thinking about all those women in tech who want all this and that. Okay, again, they're all individuals. Don't lump them into a group. They're all individuals who are different and should be valued as such. And it's great that they're good at what they do and that they've done something different. But that doesn't mean that he said all women should not be in these fields, or they're no good at it, or men are biologically inherently better than them at this stuff. Okay, or even if he said they're biologically better than those things, it doesn't mean that they're superior human beings or of superior value. Okay? Even the price thing. If you think that the measure of your value is your pay. It's how much you make within an economic system, that's the measure of your value. There's nothing anyone can do for you. You will see everything in terms of valuative, that is to say, hierarchical difference. Because you'll be looking at numbers, and that will be how you define value. Now, every individual should be treated as valuable in whatever it is that they choose to do. I'm not suggesting anything other than that. But what I'm getting at is this tendency to always see difference in valuative terms, instead of understanding difference as something independent of value. It's the systems, right? So if the biological baseline difference is there, which the studies seem to indicate that it is, again, always with exceptions, all right? Then the only thing that makes it charged, then it's simple baseline difference, right? If you look, you wouldn't say there was a moral value to the fact that men can be stronger or physically stronger than women. Not all men, not all women, obviously, right? But it's only when you start to place upon it different systems, whether it's an economic system, a political system, or something like that, that you start to equate the value of the human being, to say that this difference means that this human being is regarded as more valuable than this other human being, which is nonsense. Which is complete nonsense. Because it means you have to look at what you're valuing. What we're valuing as a society, okay, that causes us to see things that way. Because what we're doing is we're valuing being right more than doing right. And as I've said many times, it's far more important that we do right than that we be right. Thanks for watching. Hit like and subscribe. Cheers.